Hey there, and welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. It is great to have you join us. This podcast series features those who have gained victory over a life encounter. With that life experience, we encourage those who are experiencing something that might seem to be insurmountable. We advance and encourage others by passing forward evaluated life experiences. We have three objectives in this podcast series. We want to encourage those who are engaged in any type of life encounter by offering to walk with you to help you gain victory over anything that might seem impossible. We want to share our experience to help you. Our second objective is to help you develop a confident resolve that there are multiple options to get past any life obstacle. It's a matter of thinking into the situation. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you are facing a dilemma resulting from a previous decision you wish you could reverse, we want to help you think into all of the facts and factors involved in making an informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business manager, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture Company who is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we feature Amanda Blackwood for a second episode, where we go a little bit further in depth, unpack further some of the things that traffickers do to describe, to be able to discern vulnerabilities. One of the things Amanda describes is people are vulnerable because they're missing something at home. They're missing something in life. It's a matter of us being discerning to be able to detect those kinds of things. Another thing she discusses is cell phone, the addictive use of cell phones and how that can lead to different isolations. It can lead to some social maladies where we're not able to socialize with others as well as we could without a cell phone. But Marty, what are some other takeaways you got from Amanda and her life testimony?
Ron, due to Amanda's experience with this trafficking, she has a wealth of information and she is working in an organization to help young kids and adults. And she talks about women being trafficked. It's just not children, but a wealth of information, a big heart to help people. We are going to have other episodes with her. The one I feel will be really good is how do you get through this and find a person that will not take advantage of you and trust that person?
It's a great lesson on trafficking. Let's listen and learn together. Amanda, it is great to have you back with us. For our listeners who may be listening to you for the first time, I want to encourage our listeners very strongly, go to the first podcast where you described your life as being trafficked, your family background, and the like. Amanda, that's a very, very quick summary. Doesn't do justice to what you have been through and how you have gained from your past experience. But our listeners and I and Marty are very interested in additional insights. In other words, let's unpack a few things just a little bit further. In our first podcast, you mentioned there are apps that traffickers use to document their findings. I'm going to put that in my words and in the context of traffickers look for vulnerable people. They know those who are vulnerable. They let others know, and it becomes a network of this type of activity. I'm just appalled that this kind of activity can happen. I want to stop talking. Amanda, thank you for rejoining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Ron and Marty. I really enjoyed being on your show last time. So this is a fun pleasure and just an honor for me.
Talk to us again about a little bit of the vulnerability, and our purpose, Amanda, is to help our listeners understand, I use the term dynamics, of what is happening. We have what appears to be traffickers who enjoy preying on people. They know what to look for. They know when they've identified. They pass that information on. And I guess by Maya's and Marty's standards, these people are sick in the head. That's not a very good term, but I don't know how people can treat others the way you were treated. Can you help us unpack some of this so that we have a better understanding so we can be appropriately aware?
One of the things that I run into a lot is people constantly saying the phrase hurt people, and that's not an excuse. I think unhealed people and mentally ill people hurt people. You can go through stuff without using that as an excuse to hurt other people. But in the world of trafficking, what you deal with a lot are people who grew up in these environments or have mental illnesses such as borderline personality disorder. They're sociopaths, they are narcissists, and they don't care if they hurt other people. This is extremely common. So the last man that trafficked me, he did not have any kind of medical diagnosis for mental health issues, but I strongly believe that they did exist there because I don't see how somebody like that could have done what he did to me otherwise. This is a real problem.
So I guess one thing I would ask you is, did you, in hindsight, feel particularly vulnerable to the way things turned out? You're not the person you used to be, but in hindsight, what I'm trying to do is help our listeners with awareness.
Absolutely. So most victims of human trafficking, we did talk about this on the last episode briefly, but most victims have experienced abuse in their childhood. So I mentioned previously, I was molested at 4 years old, again at 12, all through my teen years. I was raped at 17. When you go through all of this stuff, you learn that the people that you love and the people that are around you are the people who are also going to hurt you. And if they don't hurt you, that means they don't love you. So this leaves us feeling like there is something missing in our lives. When we go to the root of who we are as human beings, we crave that human connection. We are designed that way on purpose. When we don't feel like we have that human connection within our own families, we start to look outside of our families for that connection, and it leaves us really vulnerable. What most traffickers do is they find these people who have these vulnerabilities and these needs, and they promise to fill these needs. And in doing so, they begin to make this person depend on them so that they can easily manipulate them. So in my own experiences, the first time I was trafficked, it was a man who offered me affection and a roof over my head, which I needed at the time. The second time I was trafficked, it was a young couple who again offered me acceptance and a roof over my head, which is what I needed most at the time. When I was 31 years old and was trafficked the last time, that man offered me something that I had been looking for all of my life, and that was the affection, the love, the support, and the fairy tale ending. And I got none of that.
So with you, the trafficker was looking for, saw the vulnerabilities. You're just saying the need for a roof over your head, the need for affection, those kinds of things. And I think you were saying in the first podcast that it's not uncommon that trafficking might begin in your own family. Is that a potential starting place?
Absolutely. It's very common that it happens in your own household. And in most cases, 85% of cases, it is people who have a sense of authority over somebody else's life. Many times that does mean it's parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. In my case, it was not immediate family members, it was boyfriends and girlfriends, which is also a very common scenario.
In your life, would an outsider have noticed, been able to discern your vulnerabilities, and not necessarily you were being trafficked, but at least your vulnerabilities, to have us be aware you are susceptible to trafficking? I hope I'm wording the question correctly. I'm trying to phrase it in a way that helps our listeners and me with awareness.
So yes, absolutely. It was very obvious, I believe, when I was a teenager that I was going through something very emotional. I was having a hard time. I was starting to act out. These acting out scenarios that kids go through are often a symptom of a bigger problem. This is what people latch onto. This person's going through something. If I can find out what that is, I can use it against them. It is more prevalent now than at any other point in history because people, instead of acting out in social situations like at school, they're now displaying all of their heartbreak and their emotional issues and their lack of self-esteem on social media, and predators are picking up on that.
And so I could, if I chose to be nefarious on social media, I could easily manipulate you into feeling inadequate. I will take care of you, but I have underlying all that is a very nefarious purpose of using and abusing you. Is that an accurate description?
Yes, absolutely. And this is becoming an increasing problem. Even people who don't realize they are manipulating other people have begun manipulating others. And that leaves the victims feeling more and more vulnerable to people like the child predators and the traffickers out there.
I'm going to ask you something that may be very individualized, but if we were associating with you and we had a meaningful relationship, and I discerned you're vulnerable. Maybe there's something I just have a sense there's something. What I want to ask you is, can I ask you if you're okay? Maybe some I can, some I cannot. How would I prove to be, I use the term safe space. Can you open up with me to just let me know what's happening in your life? Is there, and I'm not trying to suggest there's one simple approach, but I am with our listeners. Gosh, come on, folks, engage, get involved, don't dismiss and just walk away.
Right. We are called to action. This is in the Bible. This is in our own embedded morals. If we have morals, this is a part of us. Instead, what we see is a majority of people walking past others who are having a hard time, who are standing in a parking lot crying for who knows what reason. And instead of offering them help and saying, "What can I do to help you?" they're saying, "It's not my problem," and walking past. And we're seeing this more and more in friendships too, because we have this disjointed connection with people. And that is a lot of that contributed to the rise of social media. We feel like we can talk more to people if we're not face to face. It gets really uncomfortable when you walk up to somebody and you see them crying. You don't know what to do. And it's okay to be uncomfortable, but it's also okay to say, "What's wrong? Are you okay? There's something wrong." It's important to recognize when somebody is lashing out and angry at you for asking, they are definitely going through something and they're not okay with talking about it at that moment. Respecting that boundary and walking away and saying, "I'm here when you need me," is a really great way of establishing with that person that you're going to respect what it is that they're needing at that moment. When they are ready to talk, they're more inclined to reach out to you because they already know that what they're telling you is going to stay with you. And if they decide they don't want to cross a line with telling you their story, then you're not going to push them.
I am generating a whole line of thoughts right now. For the person who would say, not now, not yet, say it or indicate it, is it appropriate to make the phone call, establish contact in some way to say, "Amanda, just want to check in with you, see how you're doing today"?
Absolutely. I did that recently with a friend of mine. I had a terrible dream that this friend was in trouble of some sort, and I reached out to them, and it turned out they were going through some stuff. They were not comfortable with talking to me, but I was able to encourage them through my own experiences of being able to seek out counseling and therapy. And they are now on the road to recovery from a suicide attempt.
Oh, gosh, that's great. In that context, I'm not supposing I am the right person for everybody. You and others may feel more comfortable talking with someone else. I think what you're saying is that as a minimum, just reach out in attempt to make contact, establish that rapport such that if you sense I'm not the best person, I want to be available to connect you with a better person. Is that a viable approach?
Absolutely. Not all of us are completely armed to be able to battle the internal arguments and fights that somebody else is going through, especially if you're a trauma survivor. By hearing the fine details of how somebody else has gone through or is experiencing trauma, it can be damaging to the person hearing because it's triggering stuff within them. It can cause them to regress in their own healing journeys. So it's important to recognize that and have your own healthy boundaries set up also.
For a person to reach out and just engage with, do we need some sort of certification, some special training, or is it more so just from the heart. Just reach out and want to be a friend. Act like you care.
That is exactly it. And you don't even necessarily have to be a friend. This can be an acquaintance or somebody that you see at work once in a while. It is the only thing that you really need is the desire to help your fellow man.
Now, I want to ask you a very sensitive question. What if you develop a very good relationship with the person who's vulnerable and so forth, and you learn the trafficking is occurring within the family? And by, let's just say, my own untrained mind, but I have discernment, life experience, it seems to me you need to be away from your family. How is that best done? And that may be too difficult and maybe too specialized a question to even ask.
It's definitely a touchy area. A lot of people, when trafficking is happening within their own family, they're terrified of reporting it. For one, because they're afraid of ramifications of reporting it. And for number two, this is the only family they've ever known. I was taken away from my family and put into foster care when I was 17. It didn't last very long. When I was being taken away, I was absolutely terrified. I had no idea where I was going. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. I didn't know if I would ever see my family again. I didn't know if they would ever speak to me again. And when that's the only family that you have, it doesn't matter how abusive they are, you still love them. You would do anything. So in those situations, it can be super touchy because you don't know if this person is ready to report them. You don't know if this person is ready to face the consequence of what that would mean if they do. They have to be the ones to make that first step. And sometimes making that first step means nothing more than finding a safe place to talk to somebody and to start speaking to a counselor and building a trust and a rapport. There's reports out there that say that about 90% of people lie to their therapist. This is because they don't feel comfortable telling their therapist the truth about what's happened to them or what they've gone through or what they're currently going through. You have to build that relationship first. It's the same thing with a friendship, it's the same thing with a therapist.
I want to go back to the apps. How would you identify? Because an app, you push on and you're on your computer, like teenagers, and they're told, hey, just push this and it'll go here. So then they're talking to someone. It's friendly. I'm just having a good time. But actually, there may be someone that is following them and can be someone that is a trafficker. How do you explain to someone listening that's saying, I'm just talking. I'm not getting engaged in anything like that?
It can be such a challenge when you're talking to teens specifically. I mean, the first thing that I would suggest people do is just do a quick Google search on apps that predators use. There are so many articles out there, and there's so many apps that are listed in these articles, and it talks about what these dangers are. One of the biggest dangers is that they start developing this relationship with somebody, and with the development of AI being what it is these days, I can make myself look like a 9-year-old boy very easily in photos or videos. Having that ability and putting myself into that position, I can portray myself as a little kid on these apps where I'm talking to actual little kids. And if I can make myself look like a 9-year-old little boy, you better believe a 43-year-old man can make himself look like a 9-year-old little girl too. This is so dangerous, and so many people don't recognize this. I've done several posts on social media about what this looks like and how to spot the different signs of how these AI images are manipulated, but they're getting harder and harder to do.
Can a listener sign up for your newsletters, subscribe to your social media? I'm absolutely intrigued by what you're saying, because there's some apps that, the seeming on the surface, I mean, let's just say they're meant well, but you have people who abuse it. And we need to be very, very watchful. I'm a believer. As a parent, you got to be a parent 24 hours a day. Biologically, you never cease being a parent. You always need to be watchful and aware.
Absolutely. And it's really important to make sure that we build these relationships with the kids too. When a kid is out there looking for this attention from somewhere else, whether it's online or from friends at school or they're acting out, it's because they are missing something in their lives. With kids, you have to set boundaries and rules and consequences, and you have to uphold this stuff. You can't just hand your kid a smartphone when they're 12 years old and say, here you go, call me if you need me. That's not safe parenting. This is very dangerous. By the time they reach middle school, 9 out of 10 boys and 6 out of 10 girls have already viewed hardcore pornography. I mean, hardcore pornography. If this is happening and you're not aware of it, imagine what else is happening on the apps that your kids have on their phones.
I think one of the very fundamental things, one of the very fundamental truths you are discussing is the need for connected relationships. That's what Marty and I are all about. Marty and I are faith-based. We know God created us to function best with connected relationships. When we have a connected relationship, we can be totally fulfilled. And when we don't have it, we can feel a void. I'm going to go somewhere to get that connected relationship. You described how that was operative in your life. I just sense that that's one of the things we can be very aware of. I'm going to use the term appropriately aware, that if we can accurately discern a person who is not meaningfully connected, they could be vulnerable to a trafficker. That's what I'm sensing you are telling us.
Yes, absolutely. They're looking for these friendships. They're looking for the acceptance. They're looking for people to give them the likes on social media and to comment on their posts and to tell them how great they are, because they're not getting it anywhere else. And they're seeing where all their other friends are getting this online, and they compare themselves to other people. Being online and having a social media presence is incredibly damaging to our mental health in that way.
You've probably written a lot of blogs on this, but I'm very interested in your insights. How can we as parents, grandparents, friends, associates be appropriately, watchfully aware of social media without overdoing it? I'm trying to ask the right question. How can we be appropriately judicious with the use of social media, cell phones, and so forth? It's almost as if we have to look daily at the history. What have you been doing? And if we see something that's not right, we as parents, grandparents, we have to engage.
Yeah, I've known a lot of parents to do exactly that, and it seems to really be making an impression on their children. So if their kids do have smartphones, they are not allowed to download most of the dangerous apps. There is one that is actually a dangerous app that a lot of kids have, and that one is Instagram. There's also Snapchat and WhatsApp and Meet Me and a bunch of other apps that these kids have on their phones. But the parents have very strict rules about wanting to make sure that their kids give them their phones at the end of the night. So they're allowed to mess with them for about an hour after dinner. And then the parents take the phones to charge them, and they charge them in their own bedrooms, not the kids' rooms. This is also improving their sleep quality, by the way, because blue screen time really disrupts a child's sleep patterns. It interrupts mine too, but we won't go there. But having that boundary and letting the kids know, hey, you're allowed to play with your phone, or you're allowed to converse with your friends and have conversations. But at the end of the day, that's my phone. That is not your phone. I am paying the bills. I can look at it anytime I want to. And sometimes these parents don't go through it or touch it at all. They just charge it in their bedroom. And this can go on for sometimes a week or two at a time. But they might also just pick it up and go through it some night when they've got nothing better to do and the book that they're reading has bored them out of their skull. They can see everything this child is doing. It's so important to make sure that you have that access and to make sure that the kids know that you have that access.
What I want to ask you could be very personalized and doesn't necessarily apply across the board. Are you an advocate of a maximum amount of time on the cell phone, particularly social media, the Snapchats and that kind of thing, a maximum amount of time? And if yes to that, is there a timer that a person could use to say that at the end of that time, you're off that app?
That is such a good question, and I love that one. Yes, absolutely. There is absolutely a limit for how much time that children or really anybody should spend on social media or spend on their phones. Our phones have become so much of an addiction that we are more likely to leave our house keys behind than our cell phones. This is a major problem. We've got to pay attention to this for the kids and everything. There are apps out there available for parents to be able to download so that their kids have limited amounts of time on social media. At the end of that time limit, the only thing they can do with that phone is make and receive phone calls. They can't even send out text messages. It's a great resource.
I have a sense we need to pursue further what we can do as parents, grandparents, whatever role, whatever capacity we are in, raising children, overseeing what we know to be wisdom to use with the appropriate awareness. How can we very effectively deal with the person who says, I should have the right to, but it's just not healthy for a whole lot of reasons? No, you need to be reading a book. There are much better things to do with the brain than to waste it away on, and I think maybe the three of us can use the term, you're just wasting your brain away on that nonsense app kind of thing. And so just a little bit of appropriate time. But no, let's engage, let's divert their attention, or let's pose something different, such that for those who, perhaps even those of us who are self-described ADHD, we need activities all the time. I sense it's appropriate for us to devise alternatives to that cell phone, healthier, mentally healthier alternatives.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of parents out there that are going to say, well, I don't have time for that. You need to make time for that. Probably the best ways that you can do this is communication and time. So you have to take the time to really listen to and engage in meaningful conversations with your children. For one thing, you're going to be establishing a better relationship with them to where if they feel like there is something missing in their life, they can tell you rather than telling a stranger. But also spending quality time together. So if you plan regular activities and outings, not just once a week hanging out, but a daily or, 3 or 4 days a week, you can go and enjoy time as a family. This is going to strengthen your bond again. It's going to create these lasting memories again. And it's going to take them away from these cell phones. You're going to be doing so many things all at the same time with building a better relationship with your child and keeping them away from the predators who would love it if you didn't spend time with your kids.
Let's purpose to spend quality time with our children, grandchildren. Let's set that as a life priority. Many times we have to discern what a person may feel they're missing in life. When a person misses something in life, they will seek to find whatever they're missing. There are those who can be in the house but yet still feel abandoned because we are putting more attention on someone else than the person that is subject to feeling abandoned. Even being in the presence of a person does not mean they feel totally wanted and needed. They need to have quality time, relationships. They need to know from the heart, we care. That is a matter of being attentive. That is a matter of us assessing our life as a high enough priority to assess where we are with relationships with our children, grandchildren, others around us. I want to encourage you not to say, I just don't have time. Let's purpose to make relationships a priority. That is very solid wisdom. To the person listening who might say, I just don't have the time to engage everything we're talking about. For me, everything is a life priority. We all have 24 hours, and you say you don't have time to do it. No, what you're really saying is that's not a high enough priority for me. And I think you would agree, Amanda, if we don't take care of matters now, it's a pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. And the pay me later could be, oh my gosh, I should have earlier in life. It's that message right there that I'm trying to encourage, inspire people to engage early, appropriately. We don't want to be dictatorial, I use that term, such that we alienate people, but yet we have to have enough life wisdom to know what is appropriate, when it's time to engage, and let's don't continue doing what we're doing, but let's devise an alternative. That's what I'm about, and I appreciate so much your wisdom and passing forward your life lessons.
Thank you so much, Ron. I really appreciate you guys and wanting to raise the awareness and get people out there and getting people involved, because people like you are the ones who are helping everybody else to make a difference. You're getting our voices out there. You're raising this awareness. You're working so hard to do this. And just know that you two are both so hugely appreciated and loved.
Well, thank you, Amanda. On behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you, but I also want to ask you, I just sense there's more we can talk about on this topic. You mentioned authority figures, and that was in the context of those who have a tendency, or actually the authority figures are the ones who would abuse those who are vulnerable. I think it's a valuable topic to discuss again with our listeners. What is your experience with those authority figures who want to take advantage of the vulnerable? And again, it's all in the context of awareness, such that we can recognize it with appropriate awareness to engage with people to very possibly avoid what you went through, albeit you're making a great impression in a positive way on people because of the experience you have had.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest things to watch out for is that little tingling at the back of your neck, the little hair standing up on, and those are red flags. And those red flags are there because God gave us intuition. We have to listen to that intuition. If something feels wrong, it's probably wrong. If something feels like it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. We need to pay attention to this, but we also have to pay attention to the actions of other people. If people are saying they're going to do one thing and then do something else, this is a reason to not trust them. This is a red flag. If they are manipulating your behaviors with their own behaviors, as an example, telling somebody, fine, I'll just kill myself when you get into an argument, this is an extremely abusive and negative behavior that's very much manipulative. This is what people, traffickers and manipulative people, do to other people to make them do what they want them to do. Threats, whether minor or large, it doesn't matter. The first time that comes up, it needs to be addressed. The second time it comes up, all communication with that person needs to end. This is not a good person. This is not a healthy person. And even if this is somebody that you genuinely love and care about and you want the best for them, you can wish them well and not be in their lives. You have to exit from that situation before they manipulate you any further. They need to get the help that they need.
Amanda, on behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you for being a survivor, for passing forward your life experiences. You have gone through some very devastating trauma, but it seems you have recovered from that, and you're using your life experience as a very positive benefit to others. I want to encourage our listeners to engage, go to your website, and be a subscriber to your newsletter to become more appropriately aware of what is happening around us. It's unfortunate, but there are people who want to take advantage of the vulnerable people. Amanda, again, thank you very much for passing forward your life lessons, and we are intrigued with what you've been through. We want to learn more. Thank you very much for passing forward your life.
Thank you both very much, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.
Sounds great. I hope Amanda's life story of trafficking being the target of will inspire you to take action, to want to know more about, to be aware of the people, the propensity of actions people take. The more awareness we have, the greater the likelihood we will respond to a call to action. The predators, those who are trafficking, largely are doing so because they too have some sort of void in their life. maybe some form of fantasy, their actions, their pauses to engage in trafficking. If we see that happening, I want to encourage you to just be aware of, and I'm not supposing you would be the right person to take action, except to make other people aware of the tendencies of which you are aware that causes you to believe there's a possibility they are engaged in trafficking. Amanda mentioned the hair on the back of your neck type thing. That's intuition. Frequently, if you are thinking correctly, your intuition is correct. If your intuition says, I'm not real comfortable, everything is on the legitimate up and up, I want to encourage you, take action, call others, compare notes, and just see what the appropriate action is. For those who are targets of trafficking, they are vulnerable people because, as Amanda said, they frequently are vulnerable because they too are missing something in life. In Amanda's case, she was missing affection. If we feel we are unworthy, we feel we don't have the relationships we want, there are many attributes where we seek, we need, and if we don't have, we'll have a propensity to accept what we need from anyone who purports to offer that. And you're vulnerable in that you want to trust people because you have a need for whatever you're looking for, and that person may not have a legitimate purpose in pursuing you. They may have, in fact, a nefarious intent, and that nefarious intent is to use you in an abusive way. As we become aware of others within our circle of influence who might demonstrate the propensity to have the vulnerability to be subject to the trafficking predators, I want to encourage you again, take action and be available to that person. As Amanda said, you might get a little bit of a pushback because that person doesn't know, maybe the initial conversation, if you're a safe space. Just reach out and just show we care about that person and use the words similar to, I'm here whenever you need me. And check in, follow up with that person to see how they are doing. When we do that enough times, we can develop a relationship to where we prove ourselves to be a safe space. Social media, cell phone apps, other type things that maybe can be good and have good use, just know that there are people who take advantage of various opportunities to start illicit relationships. Artificial intelligence can project a persona of a person that is not you at all, but rather the real you. And it could be you are 50 some years old, but the artificial intelligence projects yourself as a teenager, and the person can engage in what they think is a teenager, but in fact it's a predator. I want to encourage parents, grandparents, be very aware of cell phones and limit the use of, monitor the use of, check the history, and be aware of activity that can be on the cell phone. It can lead to some very dangerous consequences. I want to encourage everyone to engage and be involved in people's lives such that we are appropriately aware and we can, when we see the need, take action to do the right thing. When we are operating from the heart, we have the right values, we will do right. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with this podcast series. We hope you'll want to share this podcast with your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connections, your Twitter and Instagram communities. The more we share, the greater the opportunity we'll have to help others become aware, to feel they have the confidence they have the wherewithal to engage in a purposeful call to action. Coaching. Everyone can benefit from coaching. Marty and I are certified life coaches through the John Maxwell Certified Leadership Team. We can help people overcome any form of inadequacy through coaching. Contact us and schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session so we can demonstrate to you how we help people overcome any life inadequacies. Contact us at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session. We look forward to working with you. We also look forward to the opportunity of speaking to your group about these matters of overcoming any life obstacles. I would enjoy the opportunity to share with you some of my life stories, some of my failings and shortcomings. You can contact me at espeakersplural.com and search for Ron Cooper F4 Pilot. Would love to have the opportunity to work with you, your group, so that we can benefit others through our life experiences. The more we work together, the greater opportunity we'll have to benefit others. Let's work together. Let's share. We look forward to working with you.